I don't cover a lot of electoral politics, but if someone's surging in the polls before an election and they've got a shot and they're actually good on Israel's genocide, meaning calling it out, and they're actually good on a few other things, seems like worth talking about. This is Zohran Mandani, and it was a debate with a bunch of people, so it wasn't just the two of them, or otherwise there'd probably be a lot more clips of their interactions, but here's one clip.
Bills, that's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City. He would be Trump's delight.
All right, brief response, Mr. Mamdani, then we have to move on.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working class people.
Thank you, Mr. Mandani.
So as you can hear, they don't generally get a lot of time to talk, but when there's that many people on the stage, and they don't really want him talking because he's not what the establishment, right or left, wants. But he basically obliterated Cuomo in this debate. Cuomo, of course, the corrupt former governor of New York State, who literally had to leave being governor due to his corruption and sexual assault allegations. And now he's going to try and be mayor because, let's bring him back in. And apparently people are like, oh, yeah, that corrupt guy, well, he seems kind of less corrupt than maybe the thing we had before that was corrupt. So it's all shades of corruption. This is from American Prospect, which is a pretty damn good outlet. It says, did Cuomo peak too soon? Until this week, it looked as if Cuomo was on track to be New York City's next mayor. The incumbent, Adams, had collapsed in a haze of corruption and incompetence. Cuomo, who has assiduously courted the Black community through appearances on Black talk shows, Black churches, stood to carry the base that put Adams in office 4 years ago. Black voters, whites worried about crime, conservative pro-Netanyahu Jews, and the always powerful real estate lobby, which is dropping millions of dollars on ads for Cuomo. Real estate, by the way, really does own a lot of New York City, and I don't mean they own the real estate. I mean they own the government as well. Cuomo had also raised the most money. Big shocker, because when you are a big name with big corruption, you have a lot of billionaire friends. Cuomo was betting that after Adams, who was both corrupt and incompetent, New Yorkers would accept a little corruption in exchange for competence. But then one progressive candidate, Zohran Mandani, broke out of the pack. This was more than a little improbable. Mandani, only 33 years old, is a third-term assemblyman from Queens, as well as a Muslim and a stalwart of the DSA. This is not to say every detail about him I love. I've had plenty of criticisms of the DSA, but I don't know that we need to hold him responsible for everything DSA has ever done. The American Prospect says he's a very effective politician. Last week, Working Families Party, who I've also had criticisms of, Working Families Party is a ballot line, kind of a party in New York City. However, they almost always endorse like the mainstream Democrat. Like they'll try and push for like a primary, but then when push comes to shove, they endorse like Biden or who are like for president, or it's like, if you're going to stand for stuff, you should really not just at the end of the day go, just vote for that garbage Democrat. But anyway, Working Families Party gave Mandani its endorsement. The party recommended that in New York's complex ranked choice system, it is a little complex. However, ranked choice is much better than not ranked choice. Ranked choice can stop this either or. If you don't vote for this, then you're supporting the Republicans' garbage. They did not recommend voting Cuomo second either. So they basically did not recommend voting for Cuomo at all. So while time is short between now and the Democratic primary, that won't end things. Cuomo has between now and November to play the role of piñata. In Wednesday's debate, the candidates piled on Cuomo. Mamdani was outstanding. Of all the contenders, Cuomo is the most like Trump, both his bullying and his vindictiveness. Trump and Cuomo also share many of the same donors. Isn't that nice to know? See, the reason all these Trump donors get behind Cuomo to run New York City is because New York almost always puts in a Democrat. It rarely ever is there a Republican running New York City. So if you are a rich Republican, the Walmart family, or whoever the richest Republicans are, the Adelsons, you're not going to get a Republican in there. So why not get the Democrat that's essentially a Republican? There you go. Then you still win. So that's why they pour money into Cuomo. They're like, well, we'll get a Republican who pretends he's a Democrat. Perfect. But as we know, the Democrats are essentially Republicans. All of them. Almost all of them. Here's some of Mamdani's programs, including making city buses free, freezing rents on rent-stabilized apartments, establishing a pilot program of city-run grocery stores. I like that one because it's like with grocery prices shooting up, if you actually want people to be able to have a life and afford their lives, you should find a way to have affordable groceries. How tough could that be? You're telling me this nation is incapable of creating affordable grocery stores for people? Yeah, only if you let people absolutely pillage us at the grocery stores, only if you let corporations run things and absolutely jack up all the prices while everyone's suffering. Anyway, and he would fund the city-run grocery stores with a $10 billion tax hike on the ultra-rich. He also has figured out an astute new version of defund the police, because supporting defund the police has now become really unpopular among like liberals, because you kind of have to explain more than that. Like, it takes a little bit of education to explain to people that A, crime is not actually higher if you look across the nation than it has been, when the media will tell you it's crime's going crazy. Yeah, maybe among the ruling elite, maybe among the richest fuckwads out there, but street crime has actually not gone up. So there's just a lot of education for people to understand what true defunding of the police would mean. De Blasio, one of the only things I, at least initially, thought I'd like about de Blasio as mayor of New York City is he started doing a little defunding of New York City police, but ultimately the money that he defunded that he took out of the police was just repositioned around to like school security guards and stuff. So really given back to law enforcement, most of it. So really, it was not a defunding of the police. But on top of that, the police are so powerful in New York City that they all started just fucking up de Blasio's whole system, which they are incredibly powerful. Anyway, Mamdani, to avoid that trap, has come up with keeping the police funded, but reserving them for real criminals and adding mental health counselors for domestic disputes and similar situations that are often just inflamed by cops. If you're talking like actual real criminals, the number of cops that actually deal with that kind of shit, tiny. Most, like 99% of what cops do is walk around harassing people, trying to find some almost non-existent reason to arrest them. It is not chasing down axe murderers. Like, that shit can be done by investigators in offices rather than sending meatheads with guns to deal with it. But anyway, the devil's in the details of such a program. Like, if you actually stop sending out guys with guns on the majority of calls, because the majority of calls can be done by mental health workers. And if you look at the pilot programs in places like Oregon, these mental health, squads, whatever you want to call them, not like non-armed, non-cop mental health squads that are sent to things, the vast majority of the time when they show up on a whatever it is, they don't have to call the police with the guns. They're able to handle it themselves. So far, despite thousands of interactions, there has never been some, horrific, like one of the mental health people getting killed or something. Now, if you have millions of interactions, sure, inevitably, but that would go for that goes for firefighters, for God's sake, like it goes for anything. They've been a huge success in the places where they actually are willing to send out mental health professionals rather than cops on the calls that it's necessary. There's also the tricky question of the Jewish vote. And by the way, Mamdani, as far as I've seen, has been excellent on calling this a genocide, on calling out free Palestine, on saying there needs to be a free Palestine, etc. Like from the beginning, it didn't, as far as I know, it did not take him, months for him to decide maybe a genocide's a bad idea. That's a big thing for me. A recent poll conducted found that among Jewish voters in New York City, which has a lot of the Jewish people, Cuomo had 31% of Jewish voter support. Mamdani had 20%. That is pretty shocking. You have someone who's saying regularly free Palestine, and this is a genocide, and they've got 20% of the Jewish vote, and Cuomo only has 30%. And this is coming from American Prospect, says this confirms my hunch that liberal Jews who are ashamed of what Netanyahu has done in Israel's name But let's be honest, it's not just Netanyahu, is it? It's kind of 82% of Israelis believe that the ethnic cleansing should be completed, have no place to go politically, while the right has worked to conflate criticism of the Gaza war with anti-Semitism. It's not just the right. It's plenty of liberal Democrats have tried to convince people that you criticize the Gaza war, it's anti-Semitic, which is repulsive. Mamdani, who supports Israel's right to exist but criticizes the Gaza war, could receive a non-trivial share of liberal Jewish support. The number of Jewish people voting for Mamdani or refusing to vote for Cuomo, it speaks to how this is fucking done. It's done. Supporting Israel as a genocidal apartheid state is over, especially among anyone who's under, 65. It is just not a thing. For now, there is a growing consensus among party leaders, Working Family Party, that Mamdani, with a very strong ground game of 29,000 volunteers, can actually win the Democratic primary. So if you're in New York City, which I used to be for years and years, might be something to really get behind and support, because I think I can sum it up with fuck Cuomo. Just sum it up with that. I think that sums it up.